What's up, guys? Brandon here. That's Sean.
Hello.
Sean, E3 is over.
It is.
We saw a lot of big games. We saw a lot of small games. One of those smaller games that you saw is sort of like a return to the RTS genre, which has sort of been waning as of late.
True.
Game's called Dropzone. It's by a developer called Sparky Pants. And what is Dropzone about?
So Dropzone is an RTS game. It's, in the traditional look of RTS. It's top down. It's 1v1. The interesting thing about this is that it's 15-minute timed matches where you have to complete objectives to score. The basic gameplay is that you run around the map and you kind of kill these neutral creeps, and by doing so you gain experience. And when you kill them, they actually drop this crystal-like thing that you can carry with one of your rigs. So you can carry up to 3 because you have 3 rigs, right? To score, you have to go to the center of the map and kind of upload it, which takes 10 seconds.
That's
and during
crazy.
this time, your opponent can come in and interrupt you or kill you and steal your rig.
So it's sort of like an objective, almost like sports. Almost,
yeah,
right?
it's a little bit like a MOBA in that you're not necessarily just trying to destroy your enemy or destroy his base, but you're trying to outscore him by completing these sort of primary and secondary objectives.
But it's 1v1.
Yeah, it's a 1v1 game, and the players control 3 rigs, they're calling them. And these rigs kind of fit archetypal roles. You have your big fat one that's kind of slower and more durable, has more health. He's your tank. You have a support one that has like abilities which can refresh other rigs' abilities or buff the group. And then you have like a more DPS oriented rig that has like, rockets or lasers and can do all sorts of damage, but he's a little bit more like a glass cannon where he's a little more fragile. Yeah.
So when I watched the trailer, one of the things that really stuck out to me was the customization.
Yeah.
How each rig has multiple different points where you can basically screw different things on, and it changes sort of the abilities and also the look of the rig. What was that all about? Yeah,
so one of the really cool things about Dropzone is that while these rigs kind of fit archetypal roles, they're almost, I would say, almost infinitely customizable. Each rig has 4 active slots and 3 passive slots, and each one of those slots is you can put in different abilities. And there's, in the demo that I played, there was 12 to 15 different abilities for each slot. And so like you can switch out, let's say you're using your rig, your tanking rig. The one I played from my first match had like this big hammer on the front that when I activated the ability would stun everything around me. But you could swap that out for something that like channels, and as you run, and it's a little earthquake ability, and it just slows people.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's all sorts of different abilities, and so like the goal with the gameplay and the customization is kind of like to custom pick all these different abilities for each one of the slots for each one of your rigs, and kind of figure out a loadout and a build that works best for your playstyle and that you think is really strong against other rig combinations. Gotcha. The developers were really adamant though, like most of the game is you'll choose these abilities and these rigs and you're like, this is going to be unbeatable, and then someone else chooses something that is actually really good against yours and you're like, oh man, you have to go back to the drawing board.
So it's a lot of like figuring out what works and like counter picking and
yeah, totally. And that's where a lot of the fun is like it's not necessarily like StarCraft or Warcraft where you're really trying to optimize a build that you know is really, really successful, and it really relies on your control of the deep mechanics and your uber micro essentially. It's less like that and more like long-term strategy going in, right? Yeah, exactly.
So as an RTS guy, it sounds like there's a lot of depth going on here, but as an RTS guy, would you say, the demo you played was the first time you had your hands on it, jumping in, would you say it's something that's easy to pick up? Would you say it's something that's going to be easy to play, difficult to master, or sort of where does it fall on the scale of like people who are really into RTS games?
I think if you're really into RTS, you're going to like this game because it actually affords you an opportunity to do something a little bit more casually. And I know that casual has like a negative connotation when it comes to games, but like the devs were really adamant about this being a game for the masses, right? Like you should be able to jump into this and have fun with the customization and not necessarily be off-put by like the mechanics because they're not as deep as they are in a game like StarCraft, for instance. The other thing is like since it's time-based, it's a 15-minute match. Like you can get quick matches in, like one right before dinner or one right after, or you can do best 2 out of 3 and play for an hour or whatever. Like that's kind of one of the really cool things. As far as the UI and stuff goes, like that was a little bit difficult to look at, like any RTS or like any MOBA.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on visually that you're going to have to get acclimated to in order to really understand what's going on. And as I played longer and longer, that became the case where I was like, okay, I understand when I see the visual cues, like to stay away from that tank or whatever, and that's pretty cool. But ultimately, like I really just, I had a lot of fun with it actually, and I think that I can totally see the merit of customization being like the main thing in this game.
Cool. Well, that's Dropzone. It's coming 2016. For more on Dropzone gameplay footage, when you can get your hands on it, stay tuned to IGN.